Hey girls! Today we're going to be working on English 3 Semester 1 Week 1, Activity 1.3, America's Promise. Our learning targets for this activity are to integrate information presented in two primary sources, an illustration and a speech, and to cite evidence from multiple texts to define a concept. The learning strategies we're going to use are previewing, marking the text, think, pair, share, and soapstone. We're actually not going to be using think, pair, share because that requires us to be in person so that you can work with a partner, and since we are working remotely, we can't do that. So for our preview, in this activity, you will look at an illustration and read a speech that both describe the immigrant experience in the United States of America. So here we are, the most important part of any springboard activity, setting a purpose for viewing. So the reason that this part is so important is that it gives us an idea of what to look for when we're reading the piece. So here are the instructions it's giving us. When looking at a primary source, such as this illustration, it is important to consider both the message and context of the source. What is the source of the illustration and why is that important? So the source is where the illustration came from. So you're looking for some kind of a label on the illustration to tell you where it came from and then identify why that's important. The second thing we're supposed to be looking at is why might the date of the source be significant? So look at the date and try to figure out why you think it might be somewhat significant. Then you're looking for what do you see in the illustration? So basically you're describing what's actually in the illustration, and then what point is the source trying to convey? Like, what are they trying to say in this illustration? And then last but not least, what feelings or thoughts do you think people might have looking at the Statue of Liberty for the first time as a new arrival to this country? So you're supposed to imagine what it would be like to be in that situation and think about what feelings or thoughts those people might have. So here's the illustration. So here we have I guess if it were published in a newspaper or something, it would be in black and white. So we have this faded illustration. Back here we have the silhouette of the Statue of Liberty, a few ships, some of them with their sails down, one with the sails up. Over here we have some riggings, I believe they're called, with the officers holding the riggings. And down here we have people coming into this platform. We have some soldier-looking guys here, some more officers, I guess. And these people are probably coming to America for the first time as arriving immigrants. The reason I think that is because it looks like they're getting off a ship on this side, and then most of them are wearing some kind of a head covering, so they probably traveled for a while and they're trying to protect their heads or something. So the source down here, remember we were supposed to look for source, it says an ocean steamer passing the Statue of Liberty seen on the steerage deck. From Frank Leslie's Illustrated Newspaper, July 2, 1887, reproduced by permission of Accessible Archives. So, here it gave us the date it was published, it gave us the title of the piece, it said who wrote it, or who made it, and where it came from, and then, so that's most of the information they were asking for. But you've got to look and try to consider why is that important, why might the date be important, things like that. So, setting a purpose for reading. That is the most important part of reading. So, we're going to be underlining phrases that describe America. That's pretty straightforward. So, anything we see that describes America. Highlight phrases that describe the immigrants Roosevelt is referring to. Highlight immigrants. Circle unknown words and phrases. Try to determine the meaning of the words by using context clues, word parts, or a dictionary. So it gives us a little bit about the author, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was the 32nd President of the United States, and he was delivering this address to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Statue of Liberty. So when we are reading this, it's got a little aside about placement of modifiers, but we'll talk about that a little bit later because I think there's going to be a whole activity on it. So the speech is called The Address on the Occasion of the 50th Anniversary of the Statue of Liberty. So I'm going to read the first 2 or 3 paragraphs with you guys, and then it's up to you to read and continue to annotate the rest of the speech. Using the strategies that it asks us to use, the underlining words that describe America, highlighting things that have to do with the immigrants, and then looking for unknown words and phrases by circling them. So paragraph 1. It is the memory of all these eager-seeking millions that make this one of America's places of great romance. Looking down this great harbor, I like to think of the countless numbers of inbound vessels that have made this port. I like to think of the men and women who, with the break of dawn off Sandy Hook, have strained their eyes to the west for the first glimpse of the new world. They came to us, most of them in steerage, but they, in their humble quarters, saw things in these strange horizons, which were denied to the eyes of those few who traveled in greater luxury. They came to us speaking many tongues, but a single language, the universal language of human aspiration. How well their hopes were justified is proved by the record of what they achieved. They not only found freedom in the New World, but by their effort and devotion, they made the New World's freedom safer, richer, and more far-reaching, more capable of growth. So I'm going to stop reading with you there, and we're going to go back and do the things that we were asked to do, the highlighting of things that had to do with immigrants, the underlining of things that had to do with America, and then circling unknown words. So it says that it uses the word eager seeking millions. So this is referring to the millions of people who arrived eagerly seeking like a better future. That's what it's referring to there. All of these eager seeking millions. And then the phrase that we're missing there is of people, millions of people, but it's implied. That make this one of America's places of great romance. So when they say romance, they're not talking about like love, like a relationship kind of romance. They mean more like classical. Something that kind of brings to mind an ideal kind of version. So that's what they mean when they're talking about romance there. And then it says, looking down at this great harbor, I like to think of the countless numbers of inbound vessels. So inbound means vessels that are coming in. I don't know if you're familiar with that word or not, so I'm going to circle it. And then vessels, I don't know if you're familiar with that one either, but it basically means like something that carries something else, like a ship or a car could be a type of vessel. Something that is used to carry something. Like even a jar can be a vessel for water. So, and then it says, I like to think of the men and women who, with the break of dawn off Sandy Hook, have strained their eyes to the west for the first glimpse of the new world. So then it talks about most of them came in steerage. So when you look down here, it gives us the definition of steerage as section of the ship for low-fare passengers, meaning that these were the poor people. So most of the people who arrived were poor when they came. So they were in their humble quarters. You might not know what quarters means, so I'm going to go ahead and put a circle around that. And then here it talks about the immigrants, right? So it's talking about how most of them were poor and they had humble quarters. Quarters basically means like the rooms that they stayed in on the ship. So the things that they saw were denied to the eyes of those few who traveled in greater luxury, meaning these people came and they saw a better future. The people who came in luxury, they already had a good life. They didn't have to look for a better future. So these people saw the wonder of hope and opportunity that the rich people didn't get to experience because they didn't have the same experiences of their past life. So that's what they're talking about when it said denied to the eyes of those few who traveled in greater luxury. And then they came to us speaking many tongues. Tongues is another word for languages. But a simple language, the universal language of human aspiration. So this has to do with the immigrants as well. So it basically means that they all came with hopes and dreams and wishes, which is what they're talking about when they say human aspiration. Aspiration is referring to those wishes and dreams and hopes. So I think I read this paragraph with you guys too. How well their hopes were justified is proved by the record of what they achieved. So when they came to America, they were very successful. They achieved a lot that proved that their hopes were justified. It also, like, they found freedom, but they also had effort and devotion, and they contributed to making America even better than it was before. So here, I want to show you that they found freedom in the New World, meaning like America is a place of freedom. And then they contributed to America's freedom, so it became safer, richer, more far-reaching, more capable of growth. So these are words that they're using to describe America, whereas the action of, pursuing their desires with hope and effort and devotion is what the immigrants were doing. So that's why we highlighted that. So it's up to you to continue through this speech and continue to underline, circle, highlight, just the way that I've demonstrated for you here. When you get to the bottom, we're going to answer these questions. So the first one says, what is Roosevelt's purpose in the first paragraph of this speech? So you're going to go back to the first paragraph, reread it, and try to figure out, okay, what was he trying to do when he wrote this paragraph, and how do you know? Make sure that you're using evidence from the text to support your ideas whenever you're answering a question from Springboard. In number 2, it says in paragraph 7, so that's where we're going to look for this answer. In paragraph 7, Roosevelt asserts that Americans are bound together by what? So you're going to go back to paragraph 7, once again using textual evidence, explain what Americans are bound together by. Then number 3 is, what is the meaning of the word rich in paragraph 12? So sometimes rich can have various meanings. A cake can be rich, meaning like its taste is very full of flavor. A person can be rich, meaning they have a lot of money. Or something can be rich with something, like a forest could be rich with animal life, or a spring can be rich with mineral water. So rich can mean lots of different things. So go back to paragraph 12 and try to figure out what they mean when they're using rich in that context. So here it wants you to work with a partner, but since we're not doing that, I'm going to cross that one out so that you don't have to worry about it. Then down here, we're going to skip that as well. So for writing to sources explanatory text, it wants us to write a short essay that draws on details in both the illustration and the speech to create a definition of America's purpose. Use the strategy of definition by exemplification. So you might have to go back to the previous activity if you don't remember what that means. So be sure to begin with a clear thesis that defines the promise of America. Use the most significant and relevant details from the illustration and the speech to give examples of what that promise means, and include transitions between points in a concluding statement that ties together your essay. Now, I know that it says short essay here, but what I'm going to have you do instead of a short essay is a long paragraph. I still want you to do the things that are described in the 3 bullet points, but it could be just one paragraph. It doesn't have to be broken down into separate paragraphs because we're not trying to write an actual essay here. So make sure that you hit these 3 elements, you're using relevant details, you're citing your sources, doing everything that I've asked you to do in the past, and you should be good to go. So that's all for activity 1.3, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.